Hi, and welcome to this episode of Knitting with QueerJoe. Today I wanted to talk a little bit about how people with capacity during this time of sometimes stressful times have the capacity to reach out and ask how I am. And so, in essence, the topic is a simple question with a complex answer. So if you have a knitting project going on, or a crochet, or any kind of yarn project that you can work on while you listen with this in the background, perhaps. There's only a few times when I'm actually showing you anything of interest other than my face. Feel free to pick that up and knit along and knit with QueerJoe. So today is about a complex answer to a simple question. With COVID-19 and the associated sequestering that's going on, it requires it's actually caused an impact on all of us. But when someone reaches out to make sure I'm doing okay, it's not a simple answer of how are you doing. There are so many factors to consider when you're answering that question. It's not like in the past when somebody would meet you on the street and kind of ask, how are you? It was more of a formality or just a greeting. It wasn't a really valid question into how you were doing. Whereas today, people really want to know how you're doing. They want to know whether you're healthy. They want to know whether you're having any anxiety issues associated with being sequestered, perhaps. So when someone asks you today how you're doing, they really want to know. Thank you to all those people who have reached out and asked me how I'm doing. I've had a lot of family and friends and people who know me through the knitting communities reach out and just make sure I'm doing okay. And it's really very much appreciated. In short, for me, I'm doing very well. When I actually do an assessment of my current situation, there's not a significant amount of change that I'm going through in terms of being sequestered and things like that. If you'd like a more detailed answer to that question and you really care about how I'm doing, continue on with the rest of this. Otherwise, skip to the timestamp for current knitting and you can see what I've been working on and what I've been able to accomplish with regard to my knitting. I'm going to put this down because it takes a little bit more concentration than I'm willing to put in while I'm going through this. So I basically consider the answer to how I'm doing in three different ways. It's physical, circumstantial, and emotional. So talking about physical, from a physical perspective, I'm doing very well. Neither Thaddeus or I are sick that we know of, and we don't have any symptoms or fevers or coughs. And we definitely have sufficient food and toilet paper and access to grocery stores that are relatively well stocked, honestly, to get most of the things that we need. We have a roof over our head. We have plenty of cat food and cat litter for Finn, and so that's always a good thing. Yes, there are some things we can't get easily, or store in bulk, for instance. For yeast, for whatever reason, is so weird, has been sold out for weeks, and they haven't been able to get that in. Frozen vegetables are almost impossible to get unless you want to go for something like okra. Fortunately, we like okra a lot, and Thaddeus has a great okra dish he makes. Milk can't be stored for so long, so we try to get the organic, which stays a lot longer. But those are really minor inconveniences in terms of what we're going through, and they're seen as temporary as far as we're concerned. Things are getting better and better and easier to shop for, even during times of sequestering. So physically speaking, we're doing very well. Circumstantially, we're actually very fortunate when it comes to circumstances as well. Finances haven't changed at all for us. We don't have jobs to lose or jobs that we have to worry about working from home considerations or not being able to go to our physical place of work like some people do. I have a lot of family members who are hairdressers, for instance, who can't be doing that. And so anything that comes into contact with the public, that's not considered essential. And some people might debate whether hairdressing and hair coloring and hair cutting is an essential service during this time. And if anything, I have to say, we're actually saving money by sequestering. We're not going out to restaurants and spending money on restaurants. There's no traveling expenses, so we're not paying for gas, and we're not eating out in restaurants and things. So although the few times we stop for groceries, we are paying more at our local grocery store than we would at Costco, perhaps, for some of the same things. Like, for instance, I like Jarlsberg cheese, and Costco has an enormous wedge of Costco cheese, which costs about the same amount as a small wedge of Jarlsberg cheese at our local grocery. Now, I still want to get that, and so I end up paying a little bit more for it. But all in all, it's still less expensive. Fortunately, Thaddeus is a trained beautician and barber, and so I don't have to worry about stupid things like haircuts. And he was able to just recently cut my hair, and I'm really, really grateful for that. In addition to that, he was also able to walk me through giving him a haircut. While he could do a lot of the front pieces himself with barber clippers and even comb and scissors, he can't do the back very well, and he's not very coordinated when it comes to blending in some of the differences in length between the sides and the top. And so I was able to help him out with that with his guidance, and so he actually walked me through that, so it was great. Also, having just celebrated a birthday, we weren't able to really celebrate as we usually do. We ended up ordering a mail-order birthday cake, which some of you may have seen in some of my prior blog entries, and it turned out to be a great thing. I have a fabric stash and a minimal sewing skills so that I can actually make cloth masks, and so I've been able to make some of those, and now they're awful. Like, if any real seamstress like my sister or some of the people I know who really know how to sew were to look at these, they'd be aghast and appalled at how bad my sewing skills are, but they work for the purpose of going out to our local grocery store when I wear them. So circumstantially, we're doing probably better than we were in most cases. On average, we're doing actually better. Emotionally speaking, it's probably the most difficult of it, of the three types of ways that I assess it. With all the physical and circumstantial benefits, you'd think emotional health would follow along with that it would be equally as good because my circumstances and my physical well-being is taken care of. But for some reason, that doesn't seem to be the case. For the most part, I shouldn't say that. It is. And my emotional health is actually quite good. But it's also not assured just because circumstances are positive that emotional health will go along with that. Emotions aren't quite as clear-cut as physical and circumstantial circumstantial and physical aspects go. They change and fluctuate a lot more, and they can be decided based on a lot of different things other than just your circumstances, obviously. Don't get me wrong, overall we're doing emotionally very well. The biggest struggle I have really, I think, is with the uncertainty of situations. So not knowing whether we're going to be able to have enough cat litter for Finn, or just the whole question of when will it end, or stupid things like, what if I can't get my statin prescription refilled? Should I start taking it every other day instead of once a day? And is it questions about, is it okay to have a teeth cleaning done during this time? Is that considered essential? And if it is considered essential, is it really essential? So is potentially exposing ourselves to people in the office at the dental place worth it? And or should we let that pass and just do that at a time when it's more convenient? Those kind of things where we're postponing it. And honestly, I worry a lot about other people too. So I have good friends who own restaurants, and I have family members who, like I mentioned before, who work as beauticians, where they come into contact with the public. And obviously those people can't do their jobs right now. And even those people are reaching out, and one of my nieces is an amazingly talented colorist when it comes to hair dyeing. And another niece is an incredibly talented, uh, um, what do you call it when you design haircut? At any rate, she's incredibly talented when it comes to doing hair. And both of those two people are out of work. And yet, for instance, I know my niece who does coloring has actually mixed color for some of her clients and delivered that color so that they can apply it themselves. While she can't actually do it for them, she can actually at least give them the ingredients to do it. And in some cases, it's turned out incredibly well. And but those people I worry about because they're not able to work and generate income, and they're subject to the physical limitations of the unemployment servers in their states and all the difficulties associated with that. So I worry about people I love. In fact, more than myself most of the times. But that is still an emotional impact on me. I also, I must admit, have some feelings of deprivation and resentment. Many of you know we had to cancel my absolutely favorite event of the year, which is the Men's Spring Knitting Retreat, which was scheduled for towards the end of May. It was scheduled in upstate New York, and it doesn't look like anything's going to be opening up at least until the end of May up in upstate New York, so we had to cancel that. And in addition to the disappointment, there's also the worry of finances associated with the event and refunds and transferring people to other events and trying to maintain that same level of excitement and enthusiasm for the people that participate. So all in all, emotionally, that's been a little bit more of a roller coaster and the most difficult aspect of it. But in general, I'm in very good shape and very grateful. Yes, life is different. All in all, when it's all added up, it really is. I used to have this concept when I was working as a consultant that I used to call it the PIA factor, and the pain in the ass factor included a lot of things. It included, do I like the client that I'm working for? Are they really demanding? Do I get to stay in a nice hotel? Or is it a dumpy place? What's the commute like? Can I like roll out of bed and walk to my clients from the hotel? Or do I have to have a car with me? And do I have to fly to get there? Or can I drive? And so there are all these factors involved. How hard was the work? And how demanding was it? Or how enjoyable was it? And when I plot in my mind all these different factors associated with a particular job, a consulting job, I come up with an overall pain in the ass factor. And almost always the pain in the ass factor was about the same. Now, different factors were better in some clients and projects than others, but all in all, it was about a factor of 4, pain in the ass factor of 4 on every project that I worked with, if I were to put a number on it. And I'm talking 4 out of 10, basically. So it was kind of a pain in the ass, but really definitely not overwhelmingly bad. Now, there were a couple exceptions that went out of that bell curve of averages, and some of them were much worse and some of them were much better. But all in all, there were about 4s, almost always. And that's kind of what, when I add up all the factors associated with being sequestered and being as part of the COVID-19 event that's going on right now, I'd say it's about the same as it used to be. All in all, when I add up all the factors involved, it's probably a little bit more stressful and a little bit more emotionally challenged, but circumstantially and physically, we're actually kind of blessed in many ways, and I'm very grateful for that. So again, adding it all up, I can say that it's about the same as before when I consider my general well-being. When I have a more difficult day, it's easy to generate a little gratitude for all that I do have. It's easy to recognize self-pity when it shows up, because I can clearly recognize that that's something I don't need to indulge in, if you will. All in all, it's really quite, I'm really in quite a fortunate position, especially when I compare myself to some of the other folks that I know who do not have it so easy, either circumstantially or physically. So thank you for those of you who have asked. Thank you for those of you who have listened to this and kind of understand where I'm coming from at this point. But also just know that I do have capacity when it comes to asking about how other people are. So feel free to reach out and speak to me about that, because I do care. And I think that's really important. If you have any questions about that, feel free to reach out and ask. If you have any comments you'd like to make about how you're doing and how you feel about these circumstances, I'd be more than happy to hear those as well. So feel free to write those in comments or contact me directly, either through messaging or any ways that you have of messaging me or emailing. With that, we'll turn to current knitting. So I was able to finish the chevron scarf. I'm very thrilled with how it turned out. It turned out to be about 79 inches long, so it's like almost 7 feet long, not quite, and it's about 12 inches wide. It's very soft and it's very warm, and but I think it looks really good as well. I'm really pleased with how it turned out, and overall, I think it's going to be a fantastic scarf to work on, to both sell and or wear if I decide to keep it. I also made some progress on my zigzag striped scarf that I'm working on. So it's grown quite a bit in length, and I'm really thrilled with the colorway that it's going through. I'm actually using two completely different fingering weight yarns. One is a Plymouth yarn called Happy Feet in color 18, which is the kind of grays and blacks and slightly purples, actually. It's got some lavender in it, believe it or not. And the brighter color is Decadent Fibers, a yarn called Delish. Delish. It's in colorway I don't know. I went to her site and looked, and it may be Tutti Frutti or a custom color that she did specifically for the show where I bought it. I don't know where, I can't recall where I got this yarn, so I don't know. But it really is beautiful with these really acidy green apple greens and bright reds and rubies, and it's really a vibrant colored yarn that I'm liking very much. And think it's going to make a fantastically beautiful scarf. So with that, just so you know, I typically in my blog at least once try to describe all the characteristics of a specific project that I'm working on, so that if people have questions, I can just refer them back to that blog entry. And I've done that for this blog entry. So the zigzag scarf that I'm working on, I told you the two yarns that I'm working on, they're both fingering weight superwash sock yarns. I'm using US 5 needles. I'm knitting this on 70 stitches across, and each of the sections of before and after the increases and decreases, if you know how to do zigzag stitching, is done in seven stitch sections. So there's 10 sections of 7 stitches each before and after the various increases and decreases to create the zigzag and striping effect. And I'm only doing 1 ridge of garter for each colorway of yarn that I'm using. So it's 2 rows of each color before I switch to the other color. If you have any questions about my projects, if you have any questions about my general well-being associated with COVID, or if you'd just like to say hi, feel free to leave a comment on YouTube, on the blog, or send me an email or a message if you know me on Facebook and that kind of thing. Thanks for joining me on Knitting with QueerJoe, and with that, I'll wish you happy knitting, and I'll see you next time.